So today we're going to talk about three main things. What's causing them, how can we prevent them, and what can we expect for the future? Hey, guess who's back? So yes, I'm finally back with my new video. Sorry for the delay. I actually had some technical difficulties, but forget all that. Let's get straight to the point. I personally haven't been seeing anything on the news in the last few days, but I know they're still going on. They don't go away overnight. So let's talk about what is causing these wildfires. Before we get started, I wanted to highlight my eyelashes really quick. Let me zoom in, take my glasses off. So I just ordered me some eyelashes, and I think they're really cute. Let me show you the package that they came in. So I'm gonna put a link on my description box if you want to maybe purchase them for yourself, but they were really affordable. You get three, and I think these are identical. They're three of the same kind, so you get 3 eyelashes with a little tweezer thing. The shipping did take kind of a long time, but they did come, and they're really affordable. So I'm gonna add that link in there for all my ladies who love lashes, and they feel like good quality, so I think you'll like them. But anyway, let's get back to the video. Okay, so what's causing a wildfire? So the one main thing is the climate change. So it's getting hotter quicker, staying hotter longer. The ocean surface levels are hotter, which in turn produces more heat, which makes the vegetation more dry and more easily to just catch on fire. Also, the vegetation, even though it rains less, there has been periods in California, I don't think if y'all remember, where it had actually snowed, where that one year, I can't remember, but it actually rained, and they were so surprised that they were getting rain, which is bad too, because what that does is it allows the vegetation to grow, because of course when it rains, that's when the grass grows and whatever else. So when you have fluctuations in climate, fluctuations in the weather, it disrupts like the ecosystem. So what happens is it rains out of the blue, makes all the grass grow, makes all the trees and whatever else. So now we have more vegetation, but then it turns around and gets hot and dry, which provides more fuel. And anytime I say fuel, we're talking about the bushes, the vegetation, the grass, the linings in the forest. That's like the fuel that is dry and can burn. So really the climate change, and I don't want to say what do they call it, not eco, I forgot the name of it, but climate change is a major problem. I mean, we see that with the hurricanes are getting worse, and it's because of the heat. The heat is making all the natural disasters more worse than they climate change is one. Two, and this might be hard to believe, but the power companies, the electricity is another factor for what is causing these wildfires. Believe it or not, a down power line can be all the dry grass and vegetation needs to spark a flame and to start a fire. So the electricity from the houses and the buildings and the power lines outside is actually one major cause of these wildfires. About a week ago, one of the main power companies in California, P&E, I think the name of it is, cut power to thousands of residents to prevent fires. Now, can you believe that? It's one thing for your power to go out and to, sit around and wait for them to repair it, but for the company to turn your power off, I mean, I really feel sorry for these people. But yes, the power companies and their lines and everything is one of the factors. And really the problem is, I was going to get to this later, but we can kind of touch on it now. It's not necessarily the power companies that's doing it. It's the problem is that we are inhabiting these areas that are at risk for fires to start. So if you have a land, right, and this side of the land is more susceptible to fires, but this one is less likely, why would you want to live over here in the land where the fires are more likely to start? And that's what the problem is. That's one of the problems. The growth of California, just the growth period. People are inhabiting these areas that really should not be built on because they are susceptible to fires. They're close to the forest. You know, they go in, they clear this land that they'll go into, because you've seen it where they new construction and everything, they'll go in, and that's my baby over there, y'all, excuse her, I may have to even record this later because she want to be a part of the video. But they go in, they clear, let's say you got 500 acres, they go in and clear 50 acres of this 500, and they build right there, you know. So now you got all these trees and everything around you, you're right in the middle of it. So if this side of the forest decide to burn, you right here, you stuck. So that's part of the problems. And then you add, like I said, the power company in the middle of the area that's susceptible to the fires. And what do you think is going to happen? So we are kind of doing this to ourselves, I will say. The human people that, like us, really, climate change is one of the causes, naturally. But two, we are doing this to ourselves. Unfortunately, we are causing a lot of these problems. We're going into these areas that, you know, are more likely to get set fire. And when you put a person smoking a cigarette in the area that might cause a fire, all it takes is for him to throw that cigarette butt and boom, now we got a fire. So that's another thing, the power companies and just the people, us, in these areas causing more problems than would say if no one lived there. Okay, and so the last thing before we move on, like what's causing the wildfires, is three main factors. So you got the power lines and whatever, or even a lightning strike. Believe it or not, a lightning strike, which they say you're more likely to get struck by lightning than be in a car crash. So, which it doesn't really thunder that much, so I doubt that the lightning strikes cause a lot of these. But a simple spark mixed with the heat, it being so hot, mixed with oxygen, which we know trees produce oxygen. So a tree is oxygen within itself. Combined with strong winds, combined with fuel, which is the grass, the vegetation, and it just takes the fire and it just runs. I mean, if you've ever, that's how houses catch on fire, you know. It's just like the wind, once they get going, that's it. And but you think about it, it's like, well, how come, you know, in other states a house can catch on fire and it don't, you know, engulf the whole thing and whatever else? Because the conditions are not the same. It does not rain in California. It is so dry. That's really the difference in the wind. The wind is carrying these things, but the main thing is the forest, because most of these fires are happening not in houses. I mean, they will creep down into the houses because they've gotten so out of control that it's just no controlling them. But they're mostly happening in the forest, you know. So that's why most of the time people have time to evacuate and things of that nature, because it's not happening in the neighborhoods. It's happening in the trees and the forest. And like I said, the trees are oxygen, so that's why they're spreading so fast. Think about if you set a house on fire and if you set the forest on fire. The forest is going to spread quicker and faster because of the conditions versus a house. You know, the wood and everything, it's gonna take longer and it's not gonna catch. Like, because you got asphalt, you have concrete, which are all things that's not gonna just burn. But when you think about the forest, grass and leaves and debris and, you know, just stuff like that, that stuff is fuel that allows these fires to just go. So yeah, all those things mixed together, it's what's causing these wildfires. But let's move on. How can we prevent them? How can we prevent these wildfires? One way to prevent these are to go in and clear the forest by almost setting fires ourselves, but in a controlled manner. So to clear out the forest by burning them. Kind of getting ahead of it is what I'm saying, but in a way that you have control over it, to where it's not out of control or whatever. So one thing is to clear the forest, but the one problem with clearing the forest, not with burning it, but by like raking, like literally raking and stuff like that, is too costly. The amount of area that needs to be cleaned and maintained year after year, they don't have the money for that. The manpower, the hours, they don't have the money to create a new job, to pay somebody to go into the forest and clear out the tree, clear out the shrubs and the grass and stuff like that. That is a way to prevent it, but it's hard to maintain and it's costly. So that's why, they're doing it, but at the same time, they're not. Like dead trees, in areas that are close to the highways, that are close to these communities. It's very important that they go in and keep these areas cleared out, because that could be the start of a fire. Building standards. One way to prevent some of these fires is to up the standards of building. For instance, in Florida, if you're going to move to Florida, you're going to build a house that's maybe up on stilts. You're going to build a house that can withstand a hurricane. You're going to have shutters. You're going to have things to prevent your house from being blown away in a hurricane. So same thing with these fires. They need to up the building standards and require these construction companies and whoever else to, when y'all are gonna come in and build in these areas, to build houses that can withstand a fire. Make the roof asphalt maybe. Now they might be more expensive, but if you're going to risk your life and you want to stay in these areas, you need to build a structure that can withstand the fire. Okay, so that's another way, building standards. Okay, another way to prevent the fires is increase the manpower, I guess the firefighters, because one of the problems is once these fires get started, they are so big and so out of control that the firefighters cannot keep up. It's not enough firefighters in California to fight these fires, period. I think I'm hearing stuff. So they need to increase the manpower. If this is a major issue for y'all gonna need to get some more firefighters, because they need to be like on the clock, around the clock. And then 2 fire zones. So we know, for instance, again, like in Florida, there's certain areas, I don't think that they prevent people from living there, but they tell you that this is a flood zone. So like insurance companies, it's some areas that they will not insure you for flood insurance. Like if you live in a flood zone, the insurance is not going to cover you for flood insurance, because they know that this is a flood zone. So you're going to get flooded. So the insurance is not going to sign up to pay you when the flood comes, not if it comes, but when it comes. And that's the stance that people need to take with these fires. They need to look at them along the same lines as the floods. It's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is be aware of it and not put yourself in the line of fire. So they need to start indicating fire zones. They need to be clear, like, okay, well, if you live here, I'm letting you know up front, you might have to evacuate the fire. So, and I think if they do that, maybe less people will move into these areas. Okay, and finally, just to wrap this thing up, what does the future hold for these wildfires? And I think that's pretty obvious. The future for these wildfires is the fact that they're just going to get worse. The damage is already done when you talk about the climate change. So right now, even if we stopped the emissions that coming out of cars, even if we had solar everything, even if we went green and all that, it's too late. Like the damage is already done, and the effects don't happen overnight, thank God, but they happen over time. That's why a lot of these changes, season after season, you see it slowly creeping up. So even if we changed everything and did better to preserve our earth and everything, it's still too late. I mean, if we started now, at least we could stop future damage. But the damage that we've already done, I mean, I think we still have years to come of more wildfires, worse wildfires. So the future, I think it looks grim. Like, from what we've seen, it's only going to get worse. And in addition to the fires themselves getting worse, I think the future is going to bring the issue with the smoke, because that was one of the main problems with, which fire was that happened last year? Oh, the one I think that happened in Paradise. I can't remember which one it was, but the smoke from the fires is really dangerous, and people in certain areas had to wear those face masks because it like pollutes the area. I mean, it pollutes the air, and that could be a major problem going forward. Like, if these wildfires just keep going, and if they're getting worse and worse and worse, it's going to affect the air quality in those areas, which can be dangerous for the elderly, for children. So that's part of the future. It can really start to affect the ozone layer, and having all this heavy smoke in the air from these fires is not going to be good. And then finally, I think what the future may bring as well is simply relocating out of these areas. I think people are going to slowly start to realize that they don't want to live in these fire zones. I mean, once they start to actually declare these specific areas fire zones, they're going to have to start relocating some of these communities and some of these large houses in and around LA from those areas, because it's just too dangerous. I mean, I don't even see how people live in Florida with the hurricanes, but these fires seem to be a little bit worse, because with the water, it usually doesn't travel so far inland, but with these fires, they're literally happening inland, like exactly where people live at. And actually, really quick before I go, the president just tweeted last night in regards to the wildfires. He got on the governor of California saying that he's doing a terrible job. He said that he's doing a terrible job of cleaning the forest floors, and threatened to stop the federal funding that goes to California to help them combat the fires. So that could be another thing in the future, that if he's the president for the next 4 years, he's putting these threats out. Like, if they don't have the funding they need, then what's going to happen? So I'm gonna add those tweets in really quick just so you can see them. But yeah, so the future pretty much is looking bad. Please add your comments, anything that I missed. If you live in California, your experience, we would love to hear from you. But please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and y'all heard it. She said subscribe. That was her saying subscribe. So see, y'all heard it again, right? So subscribe to my channel for more videos, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.